All right. Thank you for all of you that joined us. I didn't send out a reminder, so I'm glad to see there's still some faces they're able to jump on. I'm first going to have the team introduce themselves, and then we're going to go over some of the changes for Schoolwide and then answer questions. So I'm Beth Wooster. I am the ESEA Federal Programs Administrator at NDE. And Dottie, why don't you introduce yourself?
I am Dottie Hoisman. I'm the Assistant Administrator and the Title I Director.
Jim?
After I unmute, I'm Jim Kent. I am the non-public guy. I work with Title II and several issues.
Ann Carmody?
I'm Ann Carmody. I'm the McKinney-Vento State Coordinator and the Title I-D State Coordinator and the REAP State Coordinator.
Amanda?
I'm Amanda Noonan. I work with ESUs and I work with school improvement.
Rhonda?
Good morning. I'm Rhonda Reet. I'm the Office Associate for Federal Programs.
Okay. And everyone that just introduced themselves also work with Title I. So when you have Title I questions, they're the people that would be able to help you the best with those Title I questions. So I'm just gonna share my screen and go over the new documents and kind of run through what's gonna happen. And then we will have those people that are just doing self-reviews. We'll ask if there's any questions, and then they can hop off. And those that are new to creating school-wide plans, we'll have them stay on and we'll walk through that process. So we're going to kind of do it in kind of an odd order, but we did make changes this year to this Title I school-wide plans. We are no longer doing peer review. And once you have an approved school-wide plan, you are good. As long as you do a self-review and let us know if things change, you're good. You don't have to update your plan every 3 years like what we were having you do. We worked really closely with the U.S. Department of Ed and found out that was something Nebraska was just doing. I don't know when. It started years and years ago, but it wasn't a requirement that we do the peer reviews. In fact, we were the only state doing peer reviews. And we figured this is one thing that we could eliminate to hopefully give back schools some time. No use in recreating the wheel. I know that some schools enjoy the professional development of looking at other plans, but if we don't have to make you redo them every year, then we're not going to. So we are moving to when we changed to the 5-year monitoring too, it kind of changed up the schedule. So what you will do once you have an approved school-wide plan is you will just do a self-review every single year. And then the year that your district gets monitored, you'll still do a self-review, but at that time is when the consultant that is doing the monitoring will look at your self-reviews. They'll just probably look at the most current or the 2 years back. So you won't be submitting things to NDE every year like you used to. It used to be that you had to have the peer reviews sent in April and the self-reviews had to be in May. That's all going away. Now you will just do the self-review and you'll hang on to it. So I'm going to share my screen real fast and hopefully walk you through some of the things that changed. So once this goes away, oh, there we go. All right, so the new self-review form can be found on the Title I web page. So if you go to Title I and then you go down to Schoolwide Programs Resources, the self-review is this one right here, the 23-24 Schoolwide self-review template. And you will click that, and then it's going to make you duplicate it. It's going to come, so you'll have to save your own copy. So just go ahead and duplicate it and save it. I'm just going to save it on my desktop for now. And that way you can make changes to it as you go. You're going to complete all of the different pieces, district name, the date that your team reviewed it, the school name, phone number, all this. Then you're going to indicate whether it's reading language arts, math, or other. And if it's other, if like you've got a wellness plan or something like that within your school-wide plan, you would indicate that here. If school-wide or if preschool is included in your school-wide plan, then you'll say yes. You're only going to check this if you are spending Title I funds on preschool. If you're not, the answer is no. Whether you have a preschool in your building doesn't matter. It's only if funds are actually spent on preschool, because there's a whole bunch of requirements that go along with that. And when it comes to monitoring, there's like 3 extra questions that have to be answered. So if you're not using Title I funds on preschool, don't say that it's part of your plan. It can be in your building, just it would be a no. Summer school, yes or no, and then you'll check the appropriate box. So either you reviewed it and there's no changes, or you've reviewed it and you're submitting the changes to NDE. Then you'll need to list who was part of the team in doing the self-review. There needs to be at least 1 parent and at least 1 administrator. If it's a high school, you also need to have 1 student. And then you need to have at least 1 or 2 teachers. So the smallest team would be probably 4 people, but it's really supposed to be a team decision, not just the Title I teacher doing the self-review and answering this for them, for the whole school. And then we've changed the way it used to be 2 separate. You had to go back and use the rubric to get your score. Now we've put the rubric right in the self-review. So you're going to look at your plan that you have on your website, and you're going to decide, is it a 1, 2, or 3? And you're just going to type your answer, 1, 2, or 3 in each of these components. When you get down to number 4, where the compact, you need to make sure that your compact for your building meets all of these requirements. And if it does, check it off. Should just check. There we go. So you'll check it off, just double click it and it will check. So as you do it, make sure it has all of those, and then you'll score yourself a 1, 2, or 3. So if you are doing all of the pieces that would give you a 3, then give yourself a 3 there. Okay. Same with the parent policy, parent and family engagement policy. It has to meet all of these requirements. If it doesn't, you may want to look at updating your plan or your policy. So you're going to work through all of this. These are all of the components that were in the your school-wide plan that you submitted to us. This one on number 7 generally is a no, because in Nebraska at this point, we don't, you can braid your funds, but we don't actually consolidate all your funds. But it's a requirement that they made us add when we were federally monitored. So we did say it's common practice in Nebraska not to consolidate funds. So chances are this is a no, not a yes. We couldn't check no for you, but the answer is no. We tried to make it as easy to know which one to do on that one. So, and then there's these last 3 questions, and you're just going to write a narrative to meet all of these. In this box, you're just going to give a brief description of what you did. So it's your meeting minutes, basically. What did you talk about and what decisions were made? So just a couple sentences and explain all this. You'll save it, put it in a file. You can print it out or whatever, so you have it for monitoring. But if no changes were needed to your plan, you're done. That is it. You go through it, save it, and then you're done. If there's changes, and the things that would really make it be a big change would be, sorry, I don't mean to make you sick here. If, for example, your district or your building was only working on reading language arts, and now you've decided that you really need to add math, or you need to add a wellness component or something. If any of these things change, or if your grade span changes, maybe your building was a K6 and now it's going to be a K4 or a K5. If that changes, if the building principal changes, we're going to ask that you go in and get the template that's on our website also. It is, let me slide this over. The school-wide plan template right here. We'll have you open that, and then it's going to look like this. And we'll have you just submit that first page if any of those things change. If you've added a wellness component and there's a number that you need to maybe change some things, you might want to update it. Then when you go on your website, you have to post your updated school-wide plan. All you would have to do is print this page and then print all the other pages that you had on your old plan if nothing else changed. and just make sure that when you've posted it, you've got the new information on your website. I hope that makes sense. Are there any questions on the self-review, I guess, before I move on to the other ones? I can quit sharing for a minute so I can see people. Or just, you can unmute yourself and ask too.
With the parent requirement, can that be a staff member that is acting solely as a parent for that
Yep.
role? Okay.
Yep, that would be fine. Just sign them in as a parent.
Okay.
Then you still need another staff member.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, that would be fine.
This might be kind of a silly question, but I know part of the plan is enrollment numbers, things like that, or if our curriculum has changed. Does that mean that we need to redo that and just update that, or how does that?
We aren't worried about that because what the Fed said is once you've got an approved school-wide plan, as long as you complete the self-review every year, or as long as you're reviewing it and you have it posted on your website, that you don't have to redo the whole plan. Now, if you want to, if every year when you do your self-review, you want to update this page and have the most current information, feel free to. That would be completely fine, but it's not a requirement. So, but the posting on the website is a requirement. And one of the things that's going to happen is on your consolidated grant, we are going to ask you to give us the link where your school-wide plan is posted on your website. And this is the way we're getting around doing all of this peer review, is that we can go in, we can find your school-wide plan, and it's just going to be on your grant. That way we can check that every year. And then that we've taken that away from on the monitoring checklist. It used to be on the monitoring checklist that we had you include your link. It's just going to be on the grant from now on. So as long as we've got that information, then we'll be good. But it's good to have the principals, all this information updated, because your parents have access to this. And if you have a principal that's listed from 5 years ago and your schools get on there, they're gonna be like, who is this and what? I mean, you just want to keep it up to date. So it is completely fine to update as much of it as you want, but once you've got the approved school-wide plan, you're good. So any other questions on the self-reviews? All right, we're hoping this is going to save a little bit of time. So, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to, for those that are creating new school-wide plans. And so if you are just on a self-review, you're welcome to jump off, or you can listen, it's up to you. But I'm going to go over what the new buildings that are going to be updating their school or doing a school-wide plan for the first time are going to be doing. So any other questions before I move on? All right. I'm going to shift some documents real fast. Okay, for those that are doing a school-wide plan for the first time, you're going to either Dottie sent it to you or it's on our website. The template is right here, school-wide plan template. You're going to download that, make a copy. And then we just realized that this didn't get posted. So it's going to be posted hopefully later today. But this is the rubric. So you kind of know what you have to be looking at or what you're going to be scored on. So I think
Beth,
Dottie's,
I would just share that I went ahead already this morning, like at 10:05 probably, and
okay,
sent that rubric out to those that are doing new plans. So you
perfect.
should have that in an email.
Okay. And for those, this rubric, you don't have to do anything on the rubric. We just want you to know what you're going to be graded on so that you have the rubric as you're going through it. And also when you're creating your plan, it kind of tells you what pieces are required. So for example, on 1.1, it says the required documentation is the narrative will describe how data was used from the comprehensive needs assessment, the entire school of the entire school to identify the needs of students, particularly those of failing or the risk of failing to meet the state academic standards, and how this analysis was used to plan curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So the narrative is the only piece you have to include on your plan. There's other ones when you get in here that there are actual documents that you have to submit, and it's going to tell you what those are. So this is kind of the directions of what you need to do. So as you work on your school-wide plan, you want to look at each of the different components. So the school-wide plan, you're going to complete all of the information above. And then you are going to list who was involved in creating your school-wide plan. So again, you got to have a parent, you have to have an administrator, and then some staff members. And if it is a high school, you have to include at least one student. So and it says right here, at least one student for secondary schools. And then you need all of the data, your enrollment, your class. So we're wanting just this year's, your most current information for your average class size, the number of certified instructional staff. So you're just going to complete all of this, what assessments you use, and then you're going to confirm that all your paras are highly qualified. I guess it's just qualified, not highly qualified. We need to take that highly off of there. They have to either have 48 or more semester credit hours, have an associate's degree, or have passed one of the assessments that has been approved by the committee practitioners. And then after that, you're also going to put the date that you did the plan. You're going to start working through. So on 1.1, you're going to write your narrative. So you're just going to click in it. You're going to start typing. That box will expand, and you're going to make sure that you answer the question. Then you'll go to 1.2. You're going to go through and you're going to answer the question, and you're going to look at what you would get for a 1, a 2, or a 3. And if your district or your, I keep saying district, if your building is doing everything that it that is needed for a 3, make sure you meet that. You talk about it in the narrative so that it's easy for us to identify that that would be a 3. Because when we go to score it, we will identify. You have to have a minimum of a 1 or your plan will be returned. So, and if when you get down to pieces like most of these narratives are what's going to fill the requirement. When you get down in the 4s, I believe, that's when it starts your like here's the school and parent compact. So you've got to make sure that it meets all those requirements. And then was the compact developed with staff, parents to meet the requirements, or maybe your staff, parents, students, if secondary, were involved in development of the compact, reviewed on an annual at the parent meeting, and at least one other time during the year, you would get a 3. If it was just at the parent meeting, but not one other time, you would get a 2. So you want to make sure that when you're describing, you're going to have to include your compact, but in your narrative, you want to tell us, we review it during parent teacher conferences, we review, wherever, so that it's easy when we are going to score it for us to know. So it's going to be a combination of your narratives and your documents that come up with your score. So you're just going to keep working through each one. There's not a whole lot. There used to be 12 components and now there's 10 plus. I mean, because there are I think there's only 7 now, I think. But the parent and family engagement policy, again, you have to have all of these components need to be able to be checked. And then your narrative, you're going to explain again whether it was reviewed. It's been a while since I read them. So developed with parent and family input and distributed and shared with parents and families, or if it was created and then it's also reviewed and updated an annual Title I parent meeting. If that's done, then you'd be getting a 3. So you want to make sure your narrative explains that. When you get down to the parent meetings, there's your narrative. It's going to be just a narrative, but I guess you also need to have a copy of a sign-in sheet. So you need to have a copy of a sign-in sheet. You need to have the agenda from at least one Title I parent meeting, and then you need to have your narrative. So this is another example. There's going to be other documentation than just your narrative. You're going to keep working through each one. When you get all of your narratives done, you want to save it. You'll submit it along with your documentation in SharePoint. I'm going to have Rhonda, if there's questions on SharePoint, I'll have Rhonda share that information real quick. And then once it's reviewed and approved, then this, where all your narratives are, becomes your Title I plan. Your compact and your policy are most likely on your website already, but some of those other pieces may not be, because you aren't required to post a sign-in sheet, of course, or an agenda for your Title I meeting or things like that. Those you don't have to post. The only thing you have to post is this. It becomes your Title I plan. So are there any questions on this before I have Rhonda share about SharePoint?
Beth, I have a quick question. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Hopefully I didn't miss this. I stayed on to listen. I'm a school that already has a title plan. Well, in the past, we've submitted documentation annually. Will we continue to do that through SharePoint, or once the plan is there, all we do is the self-review?
Yep. Once you've got an approved plan, all you have to do is a self-review.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Beth, I think I would just, I want to just clarify something for the schools that are becoming new or switching from targeted to school-wide. You really want to just start with the rubric and go through the rubric and look through all the components to see what it is you need to do. Once you get through that and have all the documentation that you put in SharePoint, then you would actually go back to the school-wide plan and fill it out and fill in all your numbers and everything like that. So my apologies for not getting you guys the rubric sooner, but I think now it'll start clicking and making a lot more sense.
Well, and they don't have to complete anything on the rubric. We're going to be the ones that do the numbers. They're just using it as a guide. So
right.
I know in the past we've had schools that think they have to complete this rubric. This is only for you when you're going through to know what the required pieces are and know what you need to put in to answer the questions, so that when we score it, you'll get a 1, 2, or 3.
Yep.
So it's only for a resource, because it's kind of hard to do the narratives when you don't know what the requirement is.
Yeah, so the rubric has the pieces as to we need to have these pieces. It should be in SharePoint. If we have all of this, we're really at a 2, so we're going to score ourselves as a 2 on the other form.
On the self-review,
So,
you mean?
yeah.
When they do the
Awesome.
self-review. Yeah. Okay, got it.
I might be getting ahead on this one a little bit, and maybe it's in the rubrics and I haven't had a chance to look at it too well yet. But what are I guess more of the allowable or reimbursable like uses of time then for title for the school-wide versus the targeted like we've been for the last several years?
So you're kind of talking about services, Josh,
More
specifically for
services,
kids?
yeah.
Yeah. So what you can do, Josh, is districts use or schools usually send a form out to parents at the beginning of the year, or they put it in a handbook that says, if your student is needs services for in anything that we're reading, let's say you're doing reading Title One, so it gives you the opportunity, Josh, to then help support kids more on a more continual in and out basis. So it's not, you can hit any kid in the building. So let's say, for example, little Johnny is having really a lot of issues with vocabulary words, and teachers are concerned, and we've got data to show. And maybe it's just he pops into a quick little intervention with a teacher for 2 weeks. And that can be, so it's more fluid is the way I like to think of school-wide compared to targeted. Targeted is just a set those set kids. And yeah, you put kids in, but it's school-wide's a lot more fluid, Josh, to get them in and
Okay.
out. And I
Well, that
don't
makes
know if
sense.
Beth, if you want to add more to that or
Yeah.
not.
I'll say, or in math, maybe there's a certain component that a child is having a hard time getting. You might want to put them into services just for a little while. And
Yep.
maybe they're great on addition, subtraction, but they're having a tough time with multiplication. So when you're working on that, you can move kids in and out as needed. Also all students, because all students are considered Title I. Once you're school-wide, all your students are Title I, all your teachers are Title I. So like if you did professional development, for example, you could include the whole staff. Where if it's targeted, it's only those that are working with those students, those Title I students can
Yeah.
be funded with the Title I funds.
So like right now, our reimbursable time, I guess I'll call it, or the time where they're working specifically with the targeted kids is what we count towards like the time and effort. But with something like this, we could also count, like, let's say our title teacher goes in with the first grade class during reading class and is supporting all the students, that would also be allowable at
Yep.
that time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good questions, Josh.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It's good to see your face, Josh. I've talked to you
Yeah.
so many times. I don't think
Yeah,
I've
I
ever
know.
seen you.
I'm surprised you haven't blocked my phone number yet, but
No way.
all right, thank you.
The other thing is if you have enough funds, you can pay for, maybe you have a, 3 first grade teachers and you have enough funds, you could pay for an actual classroom a teacher, a Title I, or it doesn't have to be Title I teacher. Once you're school-wide, we tend to call them just a reading specialist or a math specialist because they're working with everyone in the building as needed. It's not, you're no longer like having to do the actual identification of the students to get them into the services and get parent permission because all children are Title I.
Thank you.
Any other questions on Title I or on the school-wide plans? Okay. Is there anyone that needs assistance with SharePoint? We can either put you in a breakout room or, Rhonda can stay on so that others don't have to stick around
Yeah.
if they don't want to, but
Yeah, I think Josh may want to stay on to just double check he knows how to do SharePoint. I don't know if anybody
Yeah,
else
my
needs support or not.
I think I got it to work now, but when I first tried it, it
Oh.
wasn't taking my account. But now I'm going through the authorization process, so it seems like it might be working now. So
okay.
Awesome.
thank you.
Well, as you're working through these documents and things, if any questions come up, reach out to any of us that are on this and we'll be happy to help you. So, all right.
Are there any other general questions anybody needs support with from federal programs team?
Yeah,
We have
even
a small,
not Title
yeah,
I, it could just be
yeah.
anything, I guess.
Stump us. Stump the chump day. It wouldn't be hard today for me, so.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us. And Rhonda, you can stop recording. And if anyone does have anything, we'll stay on for a little bit in case other people jump on late.